All right, guys. I want to welcome you to another episode of the Do Work Podcast. The Do Work Podcast is a weekly podcast where we discuss all things mindset, motivation, entrepreneurship, free thinking, and best of all, how to live your best life possible. And today is no different. We did not podcast last week. I had a travel week and rehearsal, and it was super crazy. For those of you who don't know, I'm a part of the Warrior Instructors brand, and we spent a lot of time on the road. And last week was one of those weeks where we could not podcast, but I'm back and we're back. So tonight, the topic tonight is do or die. So I thought this be a great time to dig into my backstory. Can you guys hear me okay tonight? I got a different setup going on. So if you can't hear me, please put in the chat and let me know. But what's up, Trigger Queen? Do or die. Oh, y'all can hear me. Let's fucking go. So I've always thought there's a difference between having your starting from zero, right? Starting from nothing, and then starting from negative. I know you're like, well, Diva, how can you start from negative? Hear me out. When you coming from the bottom and you coming up on that grind, you can always start from zero, but it's even deeper when you come from fucking negative. So it's the first quarter. Well, the first quarter of 2024 is coming to a close. And I like to reflect a lot. I spend a lot of time reflecting. I like to think I have sort of a philosophical mind to a degree. And one of the things I was thinking about was like, damn, Dave, like you really have had your back against the wall the last year. So short version, in 2022, the end of 2022, and I've never honestly even really talked about it. And I'm not going to get into it in detail, but I'll be brief. The end of 2022, life as I knew it had completely changed. Life as I knew it had completely changed. So I was separating from my partner 7 years. I knew I was going to have to close my business at the time. I had a large gym, hard work, no excuses. I knew I was going to have to close my business. And I knew, and I got to be honest, my identity was tied to my business. It was tied to hard work, no excuses, which to this day, I miss and love what was built there. It was really, really fucking special. So to everybody who was a part of it, I haven't really talked about this since I closed it, but to everybody who was a part of that time in that era, appreciate you, love you, thank you. You made it special. But coming out of the separation from my partner and coming out of closing my identity in my business for 7 years at that point, because it was like 5 years in and then a year and a half build out. So it was just this long process. When all that came to a close and a halt, I had no idea who the fuck I was anymore. And that is a tough place to be. So I always used to say that, like, I'm not one that has a lot of drama. So, and I don't always have a ton of problems. But when I get problems, I get big problems, right? I get huge problems. So I'll have like a period of peace and tranquility and all this amazing stuff. And then for me, when shit hits the fan, it like goes nuclear, blows the fuck up, right? So when I closed my business and I separated from my partner and my life just took a shift, I moved from Jersey, moved back to Philly. I really had to find myself again. Now, prior to that, I was traveling, I was speaking, and I was doing some life coaching. And when my life fell apart, I couldn't coach anybody. Not because my life fell apart, because that happens. That's real life. Like if you think your shit ain't ever gonna fall apart, you're in for a fucking rude awakening. But the reason I couldn't coach any clients because I had to fix my shit. You know what I mean? I had to go to therapy. I had to just really dig deep and find myself again. And one of the big questions I had to ask myself, which I haven't had to ask myself, because, you know, for 7 years I was in this routine, in this rhythm, in this vibe, and I had this identity space. I was like, who the fuck am I now? And the biggest part of that journey for me was that I realized it was time for me to evolve and change. It just was. Who Diva was from like 2015 to 2022 was that Diva, you know? You're allowed to evolve and change. And I say this because I think sometimes a lot of us get caught up in who people think we are, or who people expect us to be, or what is expected of us. And trust me, let me tell you, heavy is the head that wears the crown. So when I talk to people about entrepreneurship, and the journey and the process and all these different things, I'm telling you because I've done it and I did it. And even prior to owning, and I have another studio now, but even prior to owning my bigger gym, there was a process in the journey. And, you know, the pressure is really real. It's really real. But the hardest part of that journey was redefining who I was. And nobody could do that for me but me. Nobody could do that for me. And one of the things that grounded me and got me through the last 2 years of transition and redefining who I am, what I wanted to talk about, what I wanted to do, where I wanted to take my life, because these are all very real questions, is I'll never forget. There was a point in my life where I was bodybuilding. No. I was powerlifting at this point. I was powerlifting. I was CrossFitting. I was competing nonstop. I probably did, which is the reason I got hurt. I was probably competing literally every month. I would like do a powerlifting meet, CrossFit comp, powerlifting meet, CrossFit comp. Like I was just going crazy. I was going nuts, right? And I'm in Boston. I'm at the American Open Nationals. I'm with my sister. Yo, what's up, my IG fam? I appreciate y'all. I'm with my sisters. I had them actually fly with me to Boston because I didn't have anybody to go to this meet with me. And I get on a platform, and I think the most I ever did deadlifted was like 395. I never made the 400 club, but I'm working on that. That's another story. Never made the 400 club, but the most I've ever deadlifted was 395 at this point. So I get on a platform, I go to warm up, I go to do my first deadlift, and I miss. Now, everybody knows in powerlifting, your first lift is your easiest lift. Like, your first lift is the lift you can make if you were like handicapped, blind, sick, and had the flu. You can still make this lift, right? I missed the lift. I'm like, what the fuck? Go on to the platform. Second lift. I missed the second lift. Couldn't believe it. So you can't go down when you miss. This is the other thing. So if you miss a lift, I can't go down. I got to reattempt that weight or go up. So I missed the first lift, but I'm like, okay, no big deal, Dave. You missed the first lift. Like, shit happens, right? I missed the second lift. Couldn't believe it. Try again. I get to the third fucking lift, and I feel both of my hamstrings like detach from the back of my legs. I just remember being in so much pain. And don't worry, I'm bringing this story back around for you. I remember being in a ton of pain. I'm on a plane. I couldn't straighten my legs. And that was a point in my life. I get home, go to the doctor, like, yo, you got a 3rd-degree hamstring strain. When I say I could not bend over and tie my shoes for about a month and a half, it was terrible. I couldn't walk. I couldn't sit. I couldn't pee. It was bad. But in that moment, again, you'll see where this is going. My identity at that moment was I was a personal trainer. I was a coach. I was a very well-known coach, coached everywhere, did everything, right? Personal trainer, I was a coach. And my identity was tied into my ability to move heavy shit, which I am still very good at. And when I tore my hamstrings, I was devastated. I literally remember sitting there and I was just like, I don't know who I am. Like, I completely, and mind you, I'm not saying I'm an NFL athlete, but I completely understand when people get to the end of their NFL careers and they're ready to just lose their shit because they've done so much, the same thing every day for so long. It's time to come out and they have no idea who they are, what to do, or where to start. That was how I felt in that moment, coming off the platform of the American Open. And I never lost the powerlifting meet. It was weird. But I remember sitting on the floor. I was at CrossFit and everybody knew I like jacked my shit up and my hamstrings were all bad. And I didn't know who I was. And the thing that was interesting, there was a girl, Ridgeway Grace, Ridgeway, I love you. I remember this conversation like it was yesterday. She was like, D, and and if you know me and you follow me, I'm very upbeat. I'm very positive all the time. Even when shit is bad, I'm positive. And I'll never forget, Ridgeway was there and I was at the studio and I must have been looking like just sad and depressed and out of it, whatever. And she was like, what's wrong? I was like, dude, I tore my hamstrings. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with my life. Like, I was like, I don't know how to lift. And what do I do now? Like, how do I live my life? Because every day was just eat, sleep, train. Eat, sleep, train, coach. And she literally said to me, she was like, Diva, you're more than deadlifts, right? And I kind of was like, stunned. I was like, huh? She was like, you're more than powerlifting, right? When I tell you, I had the biggest fucking breakthrough that day. I was like, oh my God, I got so lost in this shit. I was so gone that I lost sight of who I was. Now, is Diva an athlete? Yes. But I lost sight of who I was because I got so consumed with the deadlifting and the competing and the winning and the, and the coaching and being the best and blah, 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 blah. So what does that have to do with what happened to me a year and a half ago? Well, I got consumed. I got consumed in entrepreneurship and owning and running and speaking, and all that was great. But now that chapter, because remember, your life has seasons. And this is a conversation I couldn't have had with you a year and a half ago because I was still in it. Remember, your life has seasons. That season of my life has ended. And I had to spend the last year and a half, figuring out what this new season was and what it meant, what was important to me, where do my interests lie. And I think as we mature and as we age, a lot of people go through that. Your interests at 20 are not your interests at 30, are not your interests at 40, are not your, and so on and so on. And we have to learn to separate and understand that we're allowed to change. Because I've always said, I am a person who hates change. I am a person who hates change. I do it. It makes me uncomfortable as hell, but I hate it. I hate change. I'm not a fan of change in any capacity. Change is, I'm the type of person, like, if you move my clothes from one closet to another, like, I'm like, why did you do that? Now I can't find my shirts. Like, I'm that person. I'm very regimented. So change is always challenging for me. Change is always tough. And so during this last year and a half, I had to find myself again. So what does that mean, right? What does that mean for Diva now? I had to ask myself, did I still want to do fitness? I've been doing fitness since I was 16 years old. I got my first teaching job at 18. Do I still want to do fitness? The answer was yes. Love fitness. I'll never let fitness go. I have a smaller space now. I get to do my private clients. I teach 2 classes a day. I partner with warrior instructors. I get to travel the country and teach, do what I love. That's a win-win. The next question I had to ask myself, did I still want to speak? Did I still want to talk about motivational topics and becoming your best self? Or did I feel like I was too broken from everything that happened? And then the answer again was yes. Yes, I'm gonna still talk. I was looking at videos, old TikTok videos of me talking, just me being on social, doing the shit I do, telling people to stay positive, have a great day. Just recently, I was on Facebook and all these old posts came up. And I know that wasn't nothing but God. I know that wasn't nothing but God. But all these old posts were coming up and they were like, it was just me. As I always say, when I talk to you, I'm talking to myself. So it was me reminding people of their greatness, the power within, all these things that I firmly believe. So the question was, and I had to ask myself, do I still want to speak about these things or am I too broken? And my answer was, yes, I'm still going to speak about these things. Why? Because I ain't no little bitch. Shit happens, man. Life happens. I ain't no little bitch. Yes, I'm going to still talk about these things because I firmly believe it. And thank God I started doing a lot of this during the beginning of social media. I got videos going back to 2010 of me telling people, let's go, stay focused, hard work, no excuses. Nothing has changed. The message has stayed the same. So the last and most important thing I think that I had to ask myself was, I started the podcast in 2020 during the pandemic, like most people. Most people quit by now because for those who don't know, podcasting is hard. It really is a hard hustle. My friend just started one. Shout out to Ellen the Word Els, aka the Warrior Queen. She just started one and she's like, yo, this shit is like, it's fun, but it's work. So I had to ask myself about the podcast, right? I'm in this new chapter of life. Do I want to still do the podcast? And what do I want to talk about? And again, my answer was yes. But with the podcast, my answer to myself was, I'm going to double down on that shit. And I'm going to tell you why. I have a few gifts. But one gift that I have, and I love that, again, this is one of those things with social that, you can see track record of, is that I have the ability to present topics and be as bipartisan as possible. Even when I don't like the shit I'm going to have to say. You know what I mean? Like, I am able to present topics and be fair. Fuck my feelings. I just want to be fair. And so with the podcast, I had to think, what do I want to do? Where do I want to go? So I decided, I was like, you know what? I love politics. Politics makes everybody else uncomfortable. Don't make me uncomfortable. But so I was like, I'm going to talk about politics. I'm going to talk about things that are important. I'm going to talk about things that matter to me. I'm going to talk about things that stimulate thoughts in others. Because, I mean, like, I could get on here and spew all sorts of rhetoric nonsense and conspiracy theories and whatever, right? I could spit trending topics. We could talk about Diddy escaping on a private jet when the feds raided his house, allegedly. But that's not the type of shit I want to talk about. Though that in itself is a whole nother story. But I wanted to make sure with the podcast, I was like, yo, I'm going to double down and I want to make people think. I want to make people think. And I want them to try and hear the other side. Even if you don't agree, I want you to listen to the other side. Even if you don't agree. I pride myself on being able to bring fair dialogue to the table, especially with people I don't agree with. So in redefining myself in the past year and a half, at that point, I had gained a lot of things, but I had lost a lot of things. My identity was tied into, and this happens to everybody. Like, this is not like a traumatic experience. My identity was 100% tied into who I was in that moment, which was my gym, which was my business. And any entrepreneur will tell you that you and your business, those identities kind of merge. they kind of become synonymous. They kind of become one. It's very common. That ain't like news, right? They kind of become synonymous. It's very common. But if you take anything away from tonight, I want you to take away this. You're allowed to fucking change. You're allowed to change. You're allowed to evolve. Now, people don't want you to evolve because it's easy. Like people, the way the human mind works. Remember, I told you earlier, like people don't like change. I know I don't like change. I hate it. I do it, but I hate it. People do not like change. It is much easier for them to keep you in the box they had you in because they can process it that way. Once you evolve and change, especially for the better, people can't deal with it. It makes people uncomfortable. It might make you uncomfortable too, but it really makes them uncomfortable. Don't be afraid to change. Don't be afraid to go through the friction of that change. Don't be afraid to switch your identity. And I ain't talking about like your fucking gender identity. We don't do that over here. And if you're on here and you're one of them people, sorry, we don't do that over here. But don't be afraid to identify with other things and really shift your thinking. Don't be afraid to start a new chapter in your life. You're allowed to do that. You don't have to do the same thing all your life for the rest of your life. You're allowed to change. So don't be afraid to change. It's like, seriously, don't be afraid to change. Hold on, let me get over here real quick. Hi, y'all. What's popping? Don't be afraid to change. The more you trust the process, the better your life will be. You got to trust the process. Even when it sucks, like you got to trust the process. Even when I felt like, and this is real talk, and only a few of my closest friends know this. When I tell you I got hit, and like I said, I don't usually have a lot of drama in my life, but when it hits, it fucking like blows up. So when all this shit was going on, and I'm like dealing with my emotions and trying to figure out the next step and what I need to do and all this, like there's only two things I knew for certain. One, I ain't no bitch. And two, I'm relentless. Like, there's a lot of stuff in this world that could take me out. Stress ain't going to be it. Having to start over in my life ain't going to be it. As traumatic as it was, as much as I didn't want to do it, those ain't real world problems. Those ain't real world problems. They're not. You know, struggle is part of life. Struggle is fucking part of life. Those are not real world problems. So struggle lets you know you're alive. Struggle is an indicator that the blood is flowing and the heart is pumping. Go through it. Embrace it. Trust me, life kicked the shit out of me. It did. And while that happened, I didn't bitch. I didn't moan. I didn't complain. I woke up every day, showed up, and was like, all right, God, got it. What's next? Now I'm gonna challenge you with this, Diva. Damn, really, bro? Okay, got it. What's next? Like, you have to always be ready for the next thing. You have to accept what comes your way and overcome. Relentless is really the only word that comes to mind. You have to be relentless. You have to be. And to be honest with you, I'm like super happy I went through the shit I went through. Because maybe somewhere somebody thought, oh, Dee just be talking shit like be relentless and da-da-da, and she ain't never been through nothing. The funny thing was, I've been through a lot of shit. It's just a lot of people saw me in a winning season, so they're like, she ain't never been through nothing. I've been through a hell of shit. That's why I'm writing a book. Because it's time. It's time. That's why I'm writing a book. It's time. But if I can leave you with one word tonight, is you have to be relentless. You have to be willing to do or die. That's it. That's it. Win or learn. That's it. Because the shit don't get no easier. You're going to have winning seasons. You're going to have losing seasons. And the thing that's going to define how great you are is how you handle your losses. And I handle my losses like a fucking boss. I always tell people, some of us not the same. Some of y'all be somewhere dead and crying. I handle my losses like a boss. I love my wins, but I handle my L's like a boss. And that's what's going to separate you, how you handle your losses. And I know some people say, well, you don't lose, you learn. No, bitch, you came in second. You lost. You did not come in first. How you handle your losses defines you. Because people don't, you know what's weird? People don't really remember your wins. Because, you know, misery likes company. So people like to embellish in your losses. They like to be in your losses. But when you winning, you know, they just hate. They want to see you lose. So how you conquer your losses? How resilient are you? Do you have the ability to move forward? If you can do that, then we on to something. Winning is easy, but it's hard. Losing is hard, and it's harder. So think about it. Do you have the ability to overcome obstacles? And, oh wait, I just saw this participation trophy generation can't handle losses. Don't get me started. They can't handle losses. They can't. When these kids, when they started giving out trophies because you showed up, I knew we were fucked. Stop giving these kids trophies for showing up. I used to tell people all the time, I'm not telling you good job because you did your job. The only time anybody, and I'm you know, I'm dry I'll say I'm dry. I'm fair. I'm a fair boss. I've always been a fair boss, but I'm dry. I'm not like patting you on the back because you showed up. You're supposed to show up. I pat people on the back when they go above and beyond. Like, excellence has to be the standard or shit don't work. It won't work. It really won't. This I know for sure. So again, fam, remember, the goal is for you to be relentless. If your back is against the wall, can you get it done? Are you willing to do it or die? That's it. That's simple. Keep that in mind. Take that into your day tomorrow. And don't let these little obstacles sidetrack you. All right, fam, I want to thank you for tuning in to the Do Work Podcast. The Do Work Podcast is a weekly podcast where we discuss all things mindset, motivation, entrepreneurship, free thinking, and how to live your best life possible. Today is no different. If you haven't, make sure to go over to my website, divarichards.com, subscribe. And also, if you haven't, join my broadcast channel on Instagram. I try to drop things in there, again, to keep you thinking. All right, fam. I want you all to have an amazing evening. This will be on all your streaming platforms in like the next 10 minutes. Be great. Let's go.